Thanks for coming. You guys ready? All right, we got a little less than an hour to cover everything you ever needed to know about prospecting and marketing. You're going to leave here today with a complete plan, right? Are we good online? Are we going online? Okay, cool. So my name is Graham Smith. I own the Graham Smith team.
I'm Alyssa McLeod. I'm on the Graham Smith team. I'm the director of operation. Also oversee the marketing.
Yeah. So basically what we came up with today to talk about is a little bit about how we manage our team, how we manage our day-to-day business, and split up the duties of prospecting and marketing, and how they complement one another, right? It's not one person's out there in the field prospecting and one person's back in the office marketing, and never shall the two meet. It's actually a plan, right? And each one of them has a purpose. Each side has a reason why it may complement or feed into the other. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that and hopefully then answer any questions that you have. So I think where we should start, did we have a slide we need to start with, or should we just, oh, this is the start. Okay, good. Oh, it does say, what are they? I should wear my glasses. So I thought I would start with, maybe you want to write down one on the one side. Let's do prospecting on my side. And if you don't already know or couldn't figure out, I do a lot of prospecting on the team, right? That's kind of my space and my place. And then any of the sales folks on the team, we kind of live in this world and you handle the marketing, right? So before we go into some of the things that we do, we thought maybe we would ask you all, first of all, do you even know the difference? What is prospecting? What is marketing? How would you define it? Anybody?
I think marketing is more passive.
Okay.
And prospecting or like direct.
Maybe active, direct.
Active,
yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Targeted. Prospecting is targeted. Marketing is maybe not so targeted.
Maybe. We'll come back to that, but let's write it down. Actually, by default, I think you're right. By design, it should be targeted. So I think by default, a lot of us agents fall into this marketing strategy where we just jam everything into a marketing cannon and fire it, right? And just see what works. You know, let's try this or let's try that. Or I know myself, you often keep me in check about all the shiny new object things, right? I mean, you've seen it many times, right? And I'm like, listen, I've got a great idea. We're gonna rent a plane, and I'm gonna jump out of the plane, and we're gonna parachute down, and it's gonna say the Graham Smith team, right? And you're like, no, let's just do targeted retailers. Yeah. What else? How else would you describe marketing versus prospecting? When you said targeted, what did you mean by that?
Well, I guess in the end, you're just calling a person up and trying to find out, when they want to sell or when they want to buy. Or...
Sure. Okay.
You know, your prospects marketing could be just anyone.
So maybe what you're both in all saying is this is really hyper focused and targeted on one person. Maybe this is targeted on a much, much, much bigger. Would that be fair? Would that be fair? So if you think about some items and some activities that fall into each, what would you say? If you could give me a couple examples of prospecting, a couple examples of marketing, what would you say?
Phone calls for
sure. Sure. How about marketing? Pardon? Yeah. Social media ads? Absolutely. How about social media posts? How about reels? Okay. How many people would say reels are prospecting? Nobody.
Combination of all.
Yep. Okay. Cool. We'll come back to that. I think that's a pretty good list. Do you want to flip to the next slide?
Can I?
Yeah, please do.
So I guess I'm probably wrong about the targeted thing because probably before you get on the phone for the prospect, it can be just as broad as, kind of the same range as.
Sure. It could be. I don't think it's about a right versus wrong. And in fact, I think accidentally we targeted something that I wasn't even necessarily intending to say, that I think we all at some point fall into non-targeted marketing, right? And if there's anything you could take away from this class today, is how can I get more focused? How can I get more purposeful with my marketing so that it's extremely targeted, right? And targeted not just for who am I going after, but what am I going to do with them after I've hit them or the messages hit them. Do you want to talk a little bit about this slide?
Sure. So some of the similarities between prospecting and marketing, or how they work together, they're both important components of lead generation and business development. You need really to be successful and most effective, you need both. You can't just do one or the other. And then, as Graham had mentioned earlier, they're complementary methods for acquiring new clients and building your business. So they really work in tandem and complement each other. Again, doing one and not the other, not the most effective strategy. So
have you ever been at any of these classes here in our office or throughout Keller where they talk about your funnel? Does this sound familiar to everybody? It's okay if it doesn't, by the way. So if you see this, we talk about this a lot in sales, and it's not just real estate, it's any sales. The idea here is who's all going in the top of the funnel, right? That could be people that are receiving your direct mail. That could be people that you door knocked. It could be people in your database or your sphere of influence. It could be people that you called on a list. They're all going into the funnel. What does going into the funnel mean? How would you describe going into the funnel? Somebody.
Coming as potential client, a contact.
Yep. So you put it in.
I would look at.
Yep. So you input them into a contact list.
Man.
Demand's a great option where you have their name, their phone number, their email address, their home address, and any notes that you're taking about them and your conversations with them. That goes into your funnel. And from there, you can start to apply both of these as action steps to them to build a relationship with them where that relationship will bring you business over the years. We're going to go to the next slide. So a couple things here on the differences of, and I think this is really important and why I was getting to the idea of the social media posts and whether it's marketing or prospecting. You handle all of our social media posts. Can you speak a little bit to what that looks like on a daily basis?
Well, on a daily basis, not necessarily, because we do, and I'll get into this later on in the presentation, but we work on really batching our content and pre-planning it and pre-scheduling it. So it's kind of a set and go. It's much more effective strategy than doing it on a daily basis. But anyhow, the important piece of this is that we look forward to what we're doing and schedule it out and plan it out. So you're not just reacting on a daily basis and every day thinking, well, what can I post on social media today and what should I put together? We think about it ahead of time. So it makes it much more streamlined and more effective when we're talking about getting more targeted with the marketing activities that we're doing.
And so in some ways, if you look over here, prospecting is initiating and developing new business by searching for potential customers, clients, or buyers for your product or service. Searching for, right? That means door knocking. It means cold calling or warm calling. It means conversing, back and forth conversations. A reel cannot have a back and forth as itself, okay? And this is one of the biggest mistakes I think folks make, is they assume they're lead generating when they're producing and promoting material, okay? The lead generation happens when somebody interacts with that material and you start having a back and forth conversation with them. But until then, you're marketing, okay? Does that make sense? The idea is if you are putting together content, and you'll talk about this a little bit later, that's going out there to the general public, and that content elicits a response. Your communication with them is the lead generation. The content itself isn't. So when people say, I'm back at the office lead generating right now, what are you doing? I'm making reels. That's not lead generating. You're creating marketing. The lead generation has to happen in the conversation. The goal is to develop a database of potential customers that you can systematically communicate with so that you can identify business opportunities. Does anybody know the answer to this? Gary Keller has studied this for decades. If you have a database, let's say, of 200 people, phone numbers, email addresses, home addresses, notes, and you're interacting properly with that 200 people on a yearly basis, how many transactions should that database be good for every year? I'll give you another hint. How many? 20, yeah. If you're interacting properly. Now, this is where things like Gary's 36 touch come in. I don't know what the answer is for the right amount of touches, the right amount of interactions. We definitely communicate more than 36 times a year. I mean, right now we've got to be up to 50. But the reality is that when you're serving this, you do that for 18 to 24 months on a consistent basis, you should be pulling 10% of that as closed transactions a year. So, for example, is anybody willing to share what their goal is for closed transactions this year? 10? How many people are in your database? How many have you touched at least 36 times with a minimum of 4 phone calls a year each?
Probably been on 36.
So right now you got 3 transactions, right? That's the idea. The minimum of 4 phone calls a piece, all the other touches, you can come up with a different strategy. But the idea is when you're interacting and building that relationship around this, and the reason it's 10% is it's not 20 people are going to buy and sell a home in here. It's that some are, and then the rest are going to refer you business because you're going to become their real estate agent of choice in all things real estate related when you develop that kind of a relationship. So do you see where you can start to build a plan? If you say, I want my life to look like this, and for my life to look like this, I need to make this. And if I need to make this, I need to close this. And if I need to close this, my database needs to look like this. If that's not enough to feed your need for your life, what you're trying to build, marketing and prospecting can help you build this database to a place where you can always have that repeatable business. Outbound activities are prospecting. Again, reaching out to people. It is active versus passive. We talked about that. Prospecting has a shorter conversion time than marketing. Marketing is the long game, if you will, right? Marketing is what you talked about with having marketing calendars, plans, quarterly, annually plans, okay? These are things that are going to build your brand with your database, with your community, if you will. I can find business today by going out there and actively marketing. If I called enough people today, I guarantee I can get 1 appointment a day. I guarantee you every single one of you can get 1 appointment a day if you lead generated enough. If all you said today, I'm going to start at 8 a.m. and I'm not going to stop until 8 p.m. Nobody's going to bother me. I'm going to have a coffee machine. I'm going to have a lunchbox, and I'm just going to go to town. You will find 1 appointment a day, I guarantee it, of somebody that's really talking about buying or selling a home. You may run out of people to call that you know, but you'll never run out of circle prospecting if you just call neighborhoods. Nobody can call the metro, you know. You can find an appointment a day if you do that. Longer conversion time. It requires them sometimes getting multiple different touches before they'd ever respond to you. And a lot of folks won't ever respond. Can we go to the next slide? So we talked a little bit about prospecting ideas. You had mentioned first door knocking. Any of this stuff here, do we have an eraser? Is there an eraser over there? I'm going to talk a little bit about the phone call part. Because if you take nothing else from today's meeting, I'm telling you this from my own experience and also market data. There is nothing more important than the phone calls, 4 phone calls. And I'm saying that specifically in 4 phone calls a year. The voice to voice back and forth, real time. Now, they're not going to pick up every single time. But if they're in your database, I would leave them a message. If they're not, by the way, if they're not in your database, I wouldn't leave a message. There's very little value in leaving a message to people that don't know you. Extremely low. High probability that they're going to delete your call anyway and not listen to it. You might as well not waste the time to leave the voicemail. But I can give you more than enough examples of over the years, I have called people repeatedly 4 times a year that haven't answered my call in years. I know them. They're past clients. Sometimes I think they hate me because they're not answering the phone. And sometimes I know they're saying, well, obviously I know they're sending me right to voicemail because it rings like 2 times in voicemail. I still leave the messages, and I can give you plenty of examples of referrals from that person, repeat business from that person. That person's busy, but that little check-in, that little, hey, how are you doing, reminds them of what I do for a living and reminds them that I care. that I'm checking in on them. So when real estate related things come up in their life, they care to think of me. So when I'm doing phone calls, I absolutely schedule this out, because if I don't schedule this out, everything else will fill in its place. I start my morning with phone calls. Does anybody know why morning tends to be better?
They're more likely to answer because they're not caught up in being reactive yet.
Okay, so more likely to answer. Anybody else have any other ideas?
I feel like myself, I have a better energy in the morning than you.
For me, that's it. That's it right there. I haven't found a time of day that everybody answers. I found it sporadic. Some days, some people answer this time. Some days people answer that time. Sometimes people answer on the weekend. Sometimes people answer during the week. But if I don't do this in the morning, my energy is going to drain by the afternoon, and other things are going to get in the way. Whether it's other appointments, whether it's life, and I'm not going to get my calls done. So basically, when I call, I have a piece of paper in front of me. This is real high-tech stuff here. And I draw on the top of the paper an A. I put a little line under it and a semicolon. And an L. And an N. And you can find notebooks of this stuff on my desk. Go 1, 2. And then I write down their name, Bob Smith. And if they don't answer, I put, anybody know what VM stands for? Voicemail.
In relation to you.
I only call my family. Jane Doe. Jane answered. I put a little check mark by Jane's name. Now, if Jane sends me or tells me Jane knows of somebody that might be buying or selling in the next 90 days, 6 months, define what you want to as a lead, I put a 1 next to the L. L stands for lead. Then I go on. And obviously, I'm going to talk to Jane and try to get everything I can to get in touch with this lead that Jane told me about. And then let's say I call, I don't know, I call Alyssa. That would be foolish. You would have already given me a lead. But I call Alyssa. It won't be you. It'll be Alyssa Johnson. Alyssa answers. Oh, Alyssa wants to meet with me. Appointment. Maybe I call somebody else down here and they say, you know what, we're probably not going to do anything this year, but maybe next year. Nurture. Okay. And I track this because I know it typically takes 4 leads to get to 1 appointment. That's a typical strategy or a typical metric you're going to see. So when I'm making my phone calls, whether it's to my database, whether it's circle prospecting, maybe I'm calling the vendors we work with. By the way, I highly recommend you guys, if you're prospecting, hammer your vendors. They deserve it. Beat them over the head with it. Tell them, I have given you 5 people this year and you've given me nobody. You have to know somebody that's looking to buy or sell or invest in real estate. And if they're like, I don't, let them know there's plenty of you in the market. I want to keep my relationship with you, but it doesn't seem like it's reciprocal. And I like to support businesses that support me. Feel bad about that. They're in business too. This is a business conversation. They know somebody. If I'm, by the way, don't talk to your sphere that way. You won't have any friends. This is how I track it. Okay. And then that way I know, and while I'm going down on the piece of paper, I have my command database open. And when I'm connecting with, even when I'm not connecting, I just go VM next, VM next, no answer next. Oh, talk to. Kids are doing great. They're going on vacation next month. Not going to move anytime soon. I'm leaving little notes so that as I go through over and over and over again, I remember what I was talking about. Because when you end up with a couple thousand people in the database, you're not going to remember the conversations you were having. But it's awesome when the notes are right there from the last time you called them. And if they pick up again and you can say, you told me that your son was playing tennis tournament last quarter. How did that end up going for him? They're going to be like, I can't believe you remembered. You know, they're going to feel special. That's the point. Texting is great. It's awesome. It just shouldn't be more than this. It should be in complement to this. So typically speaking, if I'm calling somebody and they're not answering for a couple of times in a row, I'll send them a text, see if they answer there. Okay? The connection happens when they respond. not when you just make the text. So if you're tracking how many people you're connecting with, and by the way, let me back up. Does anybody know why this is important to track your numbers like this? Yeah, why is it important to know your conversion rate? That's absolutely right. If I know I need to make 20 phone calls, before I get an appointment, however that shakes out with how many ever leads, if I know I need to make 20 phone calls to make an appointment and I want to get an appointment every day, I know how to structure my day. If I know that I have to close 50 transactions to feed the family and do the things I want to do with my life, and I know that they're going to come from my prospecting activities, I can work out a formula of how many people I need to call a day to make that happen. I will tell you, I've been doing this now for 21 years. I never did this kind of tracking in the first 10 years of my business. And I just lived with unbearable anxiety of the ebbs and flows of this market. The minute we were able to break this down into a formula that just showed me how many phone calls do I have to make a day, and it didn't get rid of all the anxiety, but a lot of it, some of it. But at least it was better than it was. All I know is if I make my phone calls every day, I'm going to get the business that I need to get. The rest of it will fall into place. When somebody cancels an appointment, no big deal. They don't sign with me. Well, I can't say it's no big deal, but it's still not. It's not devastating. I don't want to go burn their house down after it. Like, well, they made a wrong decision. The idea, though, is you can really focus your efforts on what do I need to do in the next 2 hours of lead generation, 3 hours of lead generation, so I can hit the goals. That's how you break it down. So that's examples of phone calls. Anybody have questions about phone calls? Oh, I do. So in Command, we'll track appointments, we track leads, we track nurtures. And then that way we can look at our overall, not only do we track it in Command, we track it every week. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, every week at our weekly meetings, the sales team reports their numbers. So then we set up a sheet for each person so they can see exactly where they're at and what their conversion rates are.
By the way, how do we report our numbers every week?
In a group setting.
Yeah, out loud.
Verbally, out loud.
Right.
Everybody else.
Right. Yeah. Do you know why we do that? This may not be a invitation why to join the Graham Smith team, but I see this.
Accountability.
Absolutely accountability. Because when I get zeros for a week, I have to say it in front of everybody. Do you think I like saying zero every week? How about any week? No, I don't like saying zeros ever. So if I know that I'm going to go into the meeting and I don't have any appointments or any accepted purchase agreements or any closings on the docket, I have to report that as the leader of the team. You think that might motivate me to get out there, make an extra couple of phone calls? Yep.
What numbers do you report?
We report how many dials, we report how many appointments set, we report how many leads that we've tracked or identified rather. We appoint how many appointments we went on, how many representation contracts we signed. Did we get any purchase agreements accepted? Were any purchase agreements canceled, and how many did we close? We report all of that verbally, right down the list. The expectation is to come to the meeting prepared with those. So it's just really a report. It's not a 10-minute experience. There's no context around it. We report it and then you track it.
Yeah.
Yep. So, excuse me, you're inputting it every week. So then we have a rolling list of how we can look at that. That'll automatically show our conversion rate,
Right, yeah.
From lead to nurture to appointment to close. And that's all tracked in Google.
Yeah, I just set up a Google spreadsheet.
Yeah, pretty simple stuff. Not high-tech stuff here. And it is pretty simple. Clearly, this isn't high-tech. I mean, I have a lot of paper that I like to write down on. I like to see things in front of me, not hidden in 4 pages I have to go find in Google. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, listen, how do we get to that sheet in Google again? I just asked you 4 days ago. You're like, well, you turn on your computer. God. How about any other, you had a question?
What's the conversion rate you're going?
Depends on what we're talking about. So
from lead to appointment.
From lead to appointment. So from lead to appointment, 4 leads to 1 appointment. So 25%.
Would you say, and how did you come up with that number?
It's a mix of what is industry standard across the United States and what we've experienced.
Okay.
And it also depends on what you call a lead. And it also depends on what you call an appointment.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go have coffee with my buddy from college. Is that an appointment? No, it's not an appointment. Unless that's what you're tracking. But I don't track that. I'm going to go meet with a seller that's talking about selling in the next 3 months. Is that an appointment? Absolutely. A lead, this is somebody that I might buy a house in the next 5 years. Is that a lead? No, that's a nurture. I might buy or sell in the next 6 months or less. I say yes. Some people say 90 days or less. It's up to you what you call it. Call it whatever you want to call it. But whatever you call it, stick to it and then track it from there. In fact, sometimes depending on the time of year, I might even say this year or less, this calendar year or less. If I meet somebody in February that says they want to sell by the end of the year, I might call that a lead. Because it's kind of about the time where people start to identify themselves as, wanting to buy or sell in the year. I'm okay with calling that a lead myself. You design your own metric around that. Whatever it is, stick to it and then track your conversion from it. So the reality is the leads are, I called you and you said you've got a friend at work that's looking to buy a home this year. I ask you if I can have permission to call that individual and you say you're going to go talk to them. I track that as a lead. Now I'm following up you trying to get that. Do you think I get 100% of those? Not even close. The conversation might fall off between you and I. It might fall off between you and your friend. The friend might say, my mom's a realtor. Thanks for the referral. There's a lot of things that can happen there. And then you want to find out from appointment to signed representation contract. That's a whole other thing. You're going to track your own conversion rates. The longer you do this, you're going to identify what your conversion rate is. And quite honestly, this is where, in my opinion, the business gets really fun. I know it sounds crazy on the metrics, like metrics are fun, but they really are. If you're saying, wow, I'm only converting at a 65% rate, and I'm talking to my friends might not trust me. And let's get honest about this. Some of us got into this business with no professional background. Why would your friends trust you? How many people get into real estate? Like everybody, right? Why would your friends trust you on day one? Your conversion rate with your friends might not be that good right out of the gate. So you might want to design a better way to carry yourself around your friends. If your friends see you every weekend, 14 shots into the evening, in a $200 bar tab, they may not want to hire you. You might want to carry yourself differently with your friends if you want to do this. The other thing is, on the flip side of that, I remember when I came here and Jake Lures asked me what my conversion rate was. I said 90%. He said, who do you do business with? I said, my friends. And I was so proud of myself. And he said, well, why isn't it 100? They're your friends. Plus, I wasn't talking to for sale by owners, canceled expireds. I wasn't pushing out into the neighborhoods. I wasn't talking to strangers. I was trying to do business with my friends, which gave me a good business. There's no doubt. I think that's where you should start. But at some point, if you want to grow your business past a certain point, you're going to have to open it up, right? And that's when your conversion rate goes down, right? Talking to for sale by owners, you get 25% conversion rate. You're killing it, right? Seriously. Same with canceled and expireds. You're a rock star, 25%. So that's going to bring, if half of your business is all of those, you might start to see 65% conversion rates, and that's okay. As long as you know what the number is, you can design, if my conversion rate is 65% and I want this amount of business, that means I need to go on this amount of appointments. And if I want to go on this amount of appointments, that means I need to call that amount of people. And then you just break it down into weekly, daily. Cool. All right. Texting, direct messaging, all of the above, great ways to get a hold of people. I will tell you, if you haven't done it before, if you're doing any messaging on Facebook, a good way to hit a large amount of people is to copy and paste. Even if you don't copy and paste and you just write a similar message, both of the next thing will apply. At some point, Facebook's going to throttle you, and they're going to stop you from being able to send more messages for a couple of days. It's not like Facebook jail, but they're not going to let you message anybody. It happens to me often. Because typically what I'll do is I'll just put, like, in the beginning of the year, hey, just reaching out to some of my Facebook friends to wish you a happy new year. I hope you're all well. Do you know anybody looking to buy or sell this year that I could be helping out? And I might copy that message and boom, 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 hit like 60, 70, 80 people, 90 people, and boom, a message comes up. I can't message anymore for a couple of days. Right? But then what happens is you start to see text boxes pop up of the people that respond. And then you start a conversation with them. Sometimes I don't even go that far in the message at the beginning. I might even say something to the effect of like, hey, how you doing? Happy New Year. I hope it's off to a great start. See who responds. Maybe I'll end it with a question. Door knocking, holding client events, parties, this kind of stuff. If you want to do first-time homebuyer seminars or stuff like that, all our prospecting, all our voice-to-voice communication with people, conversations with people that can elicit appointments, can elicit referrals. Any questions about anything on here before we move to the next slide? And feel free, even if it's a strategy question.
How often should you be holding those events?
That depends on your, what you want to do. I would say this. How many people do you have in your database?
900.
900. 900 is a good number. Yep. I think you should hold a lot of them. I think you should hold 2, 3, 4 of them a year. And they don't have to be blowout, I rented a food truck and, I had a clown, I don't know, whatever. You don't have to do all of that. It can be something very simple too. But you've got 900 people right now that you could be interacting with and become the real estate professional of. How many people have less than 100 people in their database? It's okay if you do, right? You should not be holding events because you don't know enough people yet. You need to get out there and prospect. You need to knock doors. You need to hold open houses. You need to put everybody you meet into your database. You need to circle prospects. You need to do whatever you can. You have as many voice-to-voice conversations with people as you can and ask their permission to send them items of value, such as like newsletters or other things. Or if you meet folks at an open or a door knocking, when I sell this house, would you be offended if I just contact you to let you know I sold it? Or would you want to know what it's sold for? I can give you the inside information. Oh yeah, I want to know that. Everybody wants to know that. Great. What's the best email address for me to send that to? Put them in your database. Develop a relationship with them. Don't worry about a party yet. You don't want a bunch of strangers coming to your party and eating your food and then never doing business. Absolutely. Heck yeah. I don't know. I think so. I don't know why not. Yeah. Is there a rule against that?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Nah, I haven't heard that.
Ask for forgiveness.
Yeah, exactly.
Smile and dial.
Not if they're on the do not call list, it's not, right? On any day of the week, right? And that is the truth. The reason we say this all the time is that people used to say, now you're not supposed to call anybody if they're on the do not call list, wink, wink, and then they started throwing around $40,000 fines. You are not supposed to call anybody up. I would not recommend it. I'm being serious. We do not do it. Good on the questions? All right. Let's move to the next slide. So anybody know what this is? Does anybody not know what this is? So this is one strategy that I found that works the best for me on how to manage the calling of my database 4 times a year. This breaks your entire database into 2 letters. The 2 letters represent the start of their last name, and that's who you call in that week. And do you know why it breaks it down this way? How many weeks are in a quarter? 12. How many quarters in a year? We got that much. You're not that smart. Quarters in a year. Quarters.
No, trouble, guys.
This will allow you to call your entire database 4 times a year. And they added text the 1 letter. This will allow you to call your database 4 times a year and text it twice a year. All you need to do is follow that. You don't even have to think. We have tagged our database in command with these AW, V&E, DNL, H&V. We made tags so that I can put a filter in there and say A and W. Just shows me the list. That's who I call for the week. I've tried many different ways. This is the only way I've been successful in calling my database 4 times a year is this list. Because it breaks the letters up in a nice spread on what the average amount of people are in each letter. Some letters have more people in them. So if you try to do like S and T together in 1 week, there's a ton of people that have S's and T's at the start of their last name. Very few people have, Z, right? Very few people have X as the first name of their last name. So it breaks it up kind of equitably a little bit, and so that you can get through that list in an easy way. And it makes it dummy proof. We go to the next one.
Open house plan.
Yeah, so this is one example, okay, of what you can do and what I would suggest you should do if you're going to put a plan together for anything. This example is our open house plan, okay? Maybe you want to write an example for your phone calling plan or your client event plan or everything I just said. Quite honestly, anything that you're doing from a marketing or prospecting process, I would highly recommend you make a 1 to 2 pager on what your plan is. Even if the plan isn't the best plan, at least it's written down, okay? You can always change the plan if it doesn't work and amend it. This is our 10-point open house plan. This is what we do with every single one of our open houses. We advertise the open houses online, on social, on the MLS, on Zillow. We door knock the neighborhood and invite the neighbors. Get things in order. We have somebody on the team that stomps signs on Friday, put the directionals out, so we blow up the neighborhood with our branding. It's super obnoxious. Jake hates it. Jake's the somebody. Thanks, Jake. And then all the agents forget to pick up the signs and Jake has to yell at them on Monday because all the signs are out there and people are screaming at us because there's signs all over the neighborhood. We hold the open houses. We do items of value to get people to sign in. For us, open houses are a big generator of business. By the way, I know this isn't an open house thing, but it's a prospecting thing. You know what the goal of every open house is? Anyone? No.
People to sign the sign-in sheet.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. And
I just did all that.
and or why would you talk to people?
Know where they're at and have a road.
And then you can set up an appointment. Yeah. So the goal of every open house is to add people to your database and potentially set up appointments for other buyers or sellers that might want to do business for you. If there's an individual there that likes the house, you are absolutely not only obligated, but you'd be a fool not to sell the house to them. Okay. We absolutely are checking to see if everybody likes the house. We're absolutely promoting the open house. If for no other reason, what if the neighbor comes in who's thinking to sell their house and all you're doing is talking to them about how you can do business with them? What are they going to think about you? They didn't even try to sell me the house, right? No, you absolutely want to try to sell the house. But how many people walk in the door and buy the house right there? Low probability, right? High probability, you can build an incredible database of holding open houses every single weekend and adding everybody to it, getting their names, getting their email addresses, getting their home addresses. Now, a lot of people don't want to give you that information, right? So you might have to give them a reason to give you that information, like a drawing. We're giving away a free TV. We're giving away a free solo stove. We're giving away a $25 gift certificate. Gas, I don't know. Whatever it is, don't give away things you can't afford to give away, by the way. You don't have to have big ticket items. The bigger the ticket, though, the more people do. But yeah, let them know. Leave little forms for them to fill out and put into a box. This has to be completely filled out for you to qualify. You can build a database around that alone. So before we go to the next plan, the reason here is that we can identify steps that we're going to take every single week. If you have a team or are partnering with anybody, you can leverage some of this stuff. By the way, you can. You can put a budget to it. You can put a plan around it, measure if the plan succeeded. Our goal is to get X amount of deals a year from the open houses. You can look at that to see if it worked. If it didn't work, you can amend either the plan or the expectations. But at least you have something to refer back to, rather than I held a bunch of opens last year and I think I met some people and I did some business, right? That's not business. That's a hobby. All right, now I'll shut up.
Now we're at marketing. So we talked about what prospecting is and what the different examples of prospecting is. So now we'll talk about marketing and how they differ. So you'll see for marketing, the social media posts and ads that we talked about earlier, email campaigns or email newsletters. This would include the 36 touch or the smart plans in command. direct mailing, print hard copy mailings that get mailed to the mailboxes, door hangers, your website, any advertisements that you'd run in newspapers or magazines, bus benches, billboards, even your sold signs or marketing signs that you're putting out in front of the house when it's listed. Just an overview. There's more examples, but this is a good start.
Can I ask a question? Just for clarity, either online or in the room, does anybody not know when we're talking about 36 touch? Does anybody not know what that means? Is everybody clear on that? Okay, just want to make sure.
All right. So to get started with your marketing, if you don't already have a marketing plan or a process in place, just need two things basically to be successful and to streamline things and make them more efficient. First thing is to develop a marketing strategy. And the second is to create a plan for implementation so you can stay consistent with it and stay on track with it. So with your marketing strategy, there are a couple components that you want to figure out before you even start to post anything on social media or put any mailers together. First thing, get clear on your values. When you're a real estate agent, you're not only marketing a product, which is the home you're selling, or a service that you're offering to your buyers and sellers, you're also marketing yourself. So you want to make sure that everything that you put out, whether it be a social media post, an advertisement, anything represents who you are as an individual and as a business. So an example, couple of our values are authenticity, competitiveness, growth-mindedness. So in a lot of the content that we post and things that we push out, you'll see some of those themes run through it, but that helps you to remain consistent with your brand so that it's recognizable and cohesive.
Let's say, Alyssa, let's say you're not part of a team, you're an individual. What would be a good way for somebody to identify what their values are as a singular individual? What would you suggest as a next step?
I think just asking yourself, what is important to you as an individual? You know, how do you conduct your business? What are your, I mean, as an individual, you can even get into like what's important to you in hobbies wise, how do you spend your time? In a business, what do you want to offer your clients? What matters to you when you go to other businesses? What's important to you? And how does your business reflect those types of things?
You mentioned things like in our value prop or our values that we have posted that we've come up with through our conversations with the team and with each other. We have competitiveness, we have growth mindedness. How many kind of identifiers do you think people should come up with? Because I mean, you could come up with a list.
In terms of values, yeah. I mean, I think 3 to 5 is a good amount to have. If you get too much, you're just diluting your marketing efforts again and who you are as and your brand.
And I know when we did it, we came up with a big group of words, and then we went back through and we found the words that had overlap, right, and then chose the word we liked the best out of the 2 or 3. Right. Because it's a lot of times we're going to write down words, but they're kind of synonymous, right? Some of the words are the same thing.
Yeah. So like Grandma's time, we sat down in a group with our entire team and talked about like, what do you like about being on this team? What does this team mean to you? How do you feel about being in the industry? What are words that describe us or yourself in this business? And we just did a brainstorm. And then, yeah, we took them and filtered them down. Well, these ones are similar, put them in this column. And then eventually we whittled it down to a list of 5.
How about this? What if you had the idea, again, if you're a singular agent, you don't have a team to kind of bounce ideas off of. What if you bounced it off of your sphere of influence? What if you put, you know, an Instagram post out there? Instead, if you could think of one word to describe me, what would it be? I get some words you didn't want to hear, but you know what? That's good. Actually, if you hear things that, you know, you're like, that's not really professional, nor is it, you know, really in line with the way I want to promote myself as a business, it's a good opportunity to ask, was that just a one-off? Was that a friend of mine from college that was being a smart aleck? Or am I putting myself out there in a different way that it shouldn't be?
And similar but different is identify your uniques. So this would be what sets you apart from other agents in the industry. If someone is looking to buy or sell a home, why would they choose you over someone else? So you want to really think about the unique offerings that you put out there that other teams or individuals may not. But make a list of about, I would say 3 would be a good number. And both of these things, your values and your uniques, are going to kind of influence what your messaging looks like. So you want to run those themes through when you're promoting yourself. The next thing is to define your target audience or ideal client. And this isn't to say like, I'm limiting myself on who I'll work with or who I'll accept as a client. But when you're talking about marketing efforts, you have a limited amount of resources, time, money. And so you want to make sure that you're being the most effective with what you're putting out there. Additionally, if you're putting out general messaging and trying to reach everyone, you're going to reach no one. So some examples of this, if one of your goals this year is to become the real estate agent of choice within your neighborhood, that would be a target audience in that geographic area. If you're looking to get more into luxury homes, that's going to look like a different demographic. It might include different geographic area, income level, interest, hobbies that will all influence your marketing.
None of these folks live in a luxury neighborhood?
I didn't know.
I'm just kidding. Just joking around.
But really, you know, in even ideal clients, I know an agent that they loved working with families with young kids because it reflected who their situation in life at the time. And they had a lot of clients in that area. So they identified that as one of their ideal client types, but that also influences, you know, when you're doing your marketing, what channels are you using? What resources are you putting behind it? What does the messaging say? It really helps you hone what you're putting out there. And then after you identify that, you can choose your channels and content type. Again, you don't want to be, it's easy to think I should be everywhere. I should be marketing on every platform possible. I should be doing all the mailers, all the emails, everything. I should be doing everything, but that's not necessarily the best way. It's not the most effective. You got to pick the channels that are going to reach the people that you're trying to reach. So if we're talking about that neighborhood farm, mailers would probably be a good option to reach that area, or maybe a bus bench in the area or a billboard. Something that's going to be very hyper local to that area. If you're looking at reaching first-time home buyers in the 20-somethings, maybe TikTok is a channel you want to think about. The other thing with choosing channels, choose channels that you will use. If there is a channel that you detest and you don't like doing, don't even put it into your strategy because you won't be consistent with it and you won't be effective with it. So I, for one, don't like Twitter, and we don't reach a lot of our target audience through Twitter either. But if there's something that it's not for you, don't feel like you have to do it. Use the channels that you're well acquainted with, that you enjoy doing. And then content type. Figure out what types of content you want to post. Are you a video person? Are you a picture person? And this leans more to social media because the other channels kind of speak for themselves. Mailers are one and done. But that's another thing. And make sure that it's authentic and kind of lends into your values and how you want to represent yourself on social. Once again, if you're not a video person, don't feel like you have to do video. Do something that's in your niche and that you're comfortable with and that you can be effective with. And then the next thing, or the last step you want to do, is determine budget and frequency. This is to make sure that you stay on track with what you have decided to do and with the rest of your marketing strategy. So some of these things you can do for low cost or no cost, like social media posting. You don't have to expend any money for that. Now, if you're going to do a neighborhood farm with postcard mailers, you'll have to put some budget behind that. So frequency may be determined by what your budget is. But determine that ahead of time because that will help when you start to go and get into the planning phase and implementation of all of this. So
on this too, how many of you have ever gone through any part of this exercise before of trying to determine your values, your mission statement? How many of you have ever gone through and tried to determine a budget for your, right? Some of these things we've all dabbled with. Maybe you've experienced this as well, but one of the biggest pitfalls I see is that folks go here and they shut the door and they live there for 6 months. And they're like, I can't start prospecting until I get this perfect. Oh my gosh, don't do that. This is extremely important, but not in place of prospecting, in addition to, right? Don't worry about perfection. Don't worry about being right or wrong. but write things down, come up with a plan, and then go to work. And when it doesn't work, change it. Don't beat yourself up. Oh, I spent $1,000 on that. That was so dumb. Well, maybe say that to yourself. I mean, I do that sometimes. Like, that was foolish. I'll never do that again. But some of this is trial and error. You're not going to bat 1,000, right? Nobody's going to get perfection on this. But don't let perfection be the enemy of your success. Because I've seen a lot of folks do that. Like, I just need to do this, and I need to get this mailer exact, and I have to make sure that it's professionally, and I'm going to spend $10,000, but I don't have that. I'm going to save up the money, and then I'm going to do some real estate business. Like, pick up the phone, right? Pick up the phone.
Any questions with anything? Screen? Okay, move to the next one. So then now that you have that strategy, and to not get stuck in the strategy phase, I mean, you got it written down, now what? How do I get going on this? How do I not dwell on this strategy and keep doing? Create an implementation plan. So as I've said before, consistency is key. With any marketing, you can plan all you want, but if you aren't doing it and aren't staying consistent with it, it's not going to be effective. So some things that you can do to help yourself stay consistent. Number one, develop a marketing calendar. Once you've identified who you're trying to reach, what your brand is, what you're trying to say, and what your messaging is, and how many times and the frequency of these activities that you're going to do, put it all down on a calendar. I recommend doing this on a quarterly basis, scheduling out 3 months ahead. And what I use, I just use a calendar template. I build it in Google Docs or grab a calendar off the email. But I mark, the way that I start is first filling in any dates of things that I know that are coming up. If we've got a team event, I'll throw that on there. If we typically do open houses on the weekends, I'll note that those come open on Friday or Saturday. Any events like holidays or things that are going around that are, cultural that you want to stick on there and recognize, fill in those sections first, and then you can go and backfill. For example, with that, if you had an event coming up, you can look, well, this is coming up on this Saturday. I better schedule in some times to promote this earlier in the month. And then you can go through and look back to your strategy and how many times I want to post. Well, I made a goal for myself to post 3 times a week on social media. Then start going through the calendar and plugging in what you're going to post on those days. But once you have that plan in place, it really helps you get a good picture, and you're not missing anything either because you've already pre-scheduled it ahead. So any events or things of note to come up, you've already got them on there. Once you get the calendar done, the next thing that's going to be a huge time saver, and I mentioned earlier in this presentation, is to set up content batching for yourself. Batch your content. So this, you've all heard of time blocking and are probably doing it. Time block this. You can get 3 months of social media done and scheduled within 3 hours in one day, as long as you're proactive about it.
And so what you're saying there is you can create the content, post the content for later delivery.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, like if you're going to go with video and you schedule out what videos you're going to post, do all of those videos in one day, and then you can schedule them out. You don't have to think about it for the rest of the month.
How about this? Back up even and make it even easier. If you want to just promote a message once a month, right? Just a static image on Insta, right? And you're like, how many times do we get caught up in what am I going to say today, right? Okay, maybe it's not even a video, maybe it's a picture. Well, you can start this in December. What's January? Happy what? Boom, you're done. What's February? Happy Valentine's Day. Love my clients. What's March? St. Patty's. Let's get drunk. What's April? Spring's here. Spring market. What's May? Flowers. What's June? Summer. Woohoo. What's July? 4th of July. What's August? I don't know. Back in school. There we go. What's September? Got no idea. You'll have to come up with something. What's October? Halloween. What's November? Thanksgiving. You're done. You're done. Yeah. You have an entire year's worth of marketing right there. You don't have to overthink this.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a good thing to think about with newsletters too. If you do a monthly newsletter, you can sit down one afternoon and plan them all out. So when you're creating them each month, they go really quickly. And some things you're not going to be able to do in advance. Like say you like to do videos while you're at an open house. You can't schedule those until you're at the open house. But what you can do is put them in your calendar. And then when you're at that event, that open house, wherever you're at, you already know what you're doing, so you don't have to think about it while you're there. You can get it done very quickly and efficiently. And then the next thing with utilize tools and resources to maximize efficiency. That's like we're talking about with pre-scheduling your content. So once it's batched and it's all created, next thing to do is schedule it so you don't have to think about it anymore. And there's a lot of different tools that you can use to do this. You can schedule right in Facebook. So certain social media platforms, you can do it within the platform, albeit they are kind of limited with certain content types that you can post and some things like that. But then you can get into other systems like Movely and Sprout Social and Hootsuite scheduling programs. They vary price-wise quite vastly, but they also have different features that they offer. So some of them you're great, but you can't schedule all content types with it. You'll still have to do some manual scheduling. But anyway, they save you a ton of time and resources. You know, maybe your resource is all of this just isn't your thing. And then you might want to think about bringing on a consultant or someone to do this for you. But as long as you've got that plan in place, that should be easy to do as well.
So again, to develop something like this that's going to complement your prospecting, additionally, in all of your posts, you should have some call to action. You should have some item of value that you're advertising. Not necessarily click on this and get money, you know, but it could be, it's the Happy New Year, you know, or I love my clients on Valentine's Day and I love giving free market analysis. You know, it could be things like that. It could be something along the lines, this is the time of year we meet so many people that are looking to buy and sell in the spring. This is the time of year we meet so many people looking to buy and sell in the fall. Please refer all your folks to us and receive X. I don't know. You can come up with it, but always have some call to action on there as well so that they can respond to you, because that's when prospecting starts, is when the conversation happens. This is the marketing. So to kind of wrap it up, we're at 11 o'clock. This is a cursory look. Obviously, we did talk about a lot of things, but we can go well more in depth on any of it. Don't get overwhelmed by it all. Start with one or two things, right? Don't try to do everything. I've seen everybody just get, you know, analysis paralysis on this stuff. Pick one or two things that you would like to see, like you do. Maybe it's an open house plan. Maybe it's a client event plan. Maybe it's a calling plan. Maybe it's a texting plan. Do yourself a favor. Write down a one-pager. Talk about the activities you're going to do from a prospecting end of it and the activities you're going to do from a marketing end of it to serve it. See how it goes. And build your business from there. You can build these blocks along the way as you're doing business. The most successful people in this industry were doing it all along the way. If they've built up a team, they've done it over a longer period of time. If you're new in the business, just get out there and start prospecting as heavily as you can while being mindful to build all of this stuff. Yes.
So, you mentioned consulting, getting consultants to do it. Like, what's a charge that you would see for that, or something? Thing if you just wanted to throw something.
That's a good question. They can really range. Often you can look for, say, an intern or someone that's looking to get into that field and probably get a relatively low rate. I've seen some consulting firms that deal more with small businesses where it's around $1,000 a month. That's probably going to be the most accurate, or what you can really expect to pay. And then if you go into like a larger scope, you're going to be paying a lot more than that, but probably.
You can also look for contract work on some of this stuff. You can go on any of the number of different websites where people apply for, or they advertise their services for contract work.
Virtual assistant.
Fiverr is a great option. Yep. Or a virtual assistant. That's another thing. There's virtual assistant companies out there that are catering towards real estate. Their employees know our business. In fact, some of them know our brokerage extremely well. They already know our systems better than you do, right? And for part-time or full-time work, you can hire these folks on for a fraction of what it would cost to hire a full-time employee. So these can be some opportunities as well that you can look into. Any other questions? Anybody online have any questions? Anybody still online, or did they all leave? Hey, all right.
I think what you said at the end, when you're doing marketing, making sure that you've got a value prop and or a call to action is really big. I think I see a lot of branding, not marketing.
Right. That's great.
Know the difference between that.
Ah, great. We talked about prospecting and marketing, but that's great. What's the difference between branding and marketing, right? our sign with our logo is branding. Call to action could be if we had a different sign in the yard saying, learn how to get a 4% interest rate on this home, call here, right? That could be marketing, right? And then prospecting is returning all the phone calls that you get. Right.
Could you make these slides available?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. We can
Yeah,
do that.
absolutely. I do.
Send it to the office and the office.
Actually, Ella's got it.
Oh, good. Yeah, feel free. Anybody else? Thank you. Thanks for coming today. I hope it was helpful.